What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new series here on Poker VIP. We have got some speed hold'em games on Coral Poker. We will be starting off this series playing some 20 euro games in the speed hold'em section of Coral. We may as well jump straight into the action and going to be giving out some general strategies and tips on how to win in these games, see what they're all about, and hopefully show you guys how to make some money. We will not be opening the Queen 6 here blind v blind, and Queen 7 is going to be a fold. I've just had a little warm up there whilst getting all the camera and everything set up. The games seem pretty good. Seem to be a decent amount of recreational players in the pool. This is being recorded about 11:30. Some of you from my previous videos will know I'm a bit of a night owl. But the games do seem good at this hour. I'm going to check the lobby for you right now and let you know how many players we have online. In the 20 an hour games, we've got 75 people playing, which is obviously a pretty decent number. We are just going to fold ace-jack off here. We don't know anything about this guy. I'm not a regular in these games, so I don't have any HUD statistical information. But as a default, I think folding there is fine. I'm going to defend the Queen 5 of hearts here for a min-open. This guy's not in for a full stack. We've got a suited hand. I tend to defend the big blind reasonably wide here. I don't think we want to 3-bet a recreational too often, but a fold will be a little bit tight. And we are just going to fold the flop here. King 5, of course, a fold out of the big blind. But ace queen, we're likely going to get involved. This guy's playing on his mobile phone. Something to look out for, I guess. People playing on their mobile device probably not going to be as serious a grinder as some of the other opponents in the pool. So some useful information potentially. We do see a limp from Nikitara and a limp on the button. We're going to bump this one right up to, let's go a euro 20. Quite happy to stack off against BF077, this old looking bloke on the button. He calls, as well as Nita Carter calling here. I don't think this is a sort of texture we should be betting into both of them, so likely just going to go ahead and check fold this hand. King 12 on the button as well is just going to be a fold for me. These guys are indeed all in. I don't know if we can watch the hands. I don't think so on Coral. If you can, I haven't found the button for it yet. Maybe if anybody knows, let me know in the comments. We're going to chuck a fold out here with the 6-2, but King 10 in the big blind, potentially going to get played. There do seem to be a lot of players in the pool, like I say, with less than 100 big blinds now. Auto reload not on as a default on Coral Poker. So if someone's a regular grinder, that's the sort of thing they're probably going to activate. King 10 off here, I think is fine for defend. Pretty close, but versus a cutoff open, I think we can get away with it. We see a very dry king high board. Definitely going to be calling a c-bet. With the king 5 suited, we can probably raise. We've called the flop here, of course. I think that's by far the more standard play, and calling the turn. In these games on most sites, I tend to see a lot of double barrels, but not too many triple barrel bluffs. So something like queen jack, maybe fire again. This isn't a turn I expect our opponents to bluff too often. I think calling a river bet here would be quite thin with the king 10 off. Don't expect too many bluffs. We do block things like jack 10, which might be a reasonable barrel. So I think folding the river is probably going to be a profit. People just don't bluff enough at these stakes, and without reads, I think calling here would be a losing play. Left-hand side certainly close against the recreational. I think you can certainly make an argument for taking a flop. I don't think the reg, or what we think is a reg here, is going to 3-bet too light. He won't have much of a bluffing range versus a $12. It's just going to be primarily for value. So I think seeing a flop here for a min-open is not the end of the world. We get led into on the right-hand side, and queen 10 suited. One of the worst hands in our range at this point. We're just going to fold it. Big decision here for 20 cents, apparently. Not sure what's going on. Ace-9 off on the right is a little bit too weak to open from this early-ish position. Just going to fold it. And we do see a flop. Once again, we flop a king on a little bit more of a connected board. But I'm still quite happy against this opponent when he opens the button. Should be looking for 2 streets of value now, so we're just going to go 70 cents. And then I think a small value bet at the river, just to try and get him to call with hands like ace-6. I don't think pocket 8s as well, pocket 9s. I don't think we can go too large here. Just going to go about half pot. And unfortunately, E-Scorpion does fold. Fishnoi opens under the gun, 10-3 off is certifiable trash, so we'll get rid of it. On the right-hand side, we're certainly interested in taking a flop with 10-9 of hearts. It is a 4x open. I still think it's probably fine to defend. It's a very connected, playable hand, especially against the sort of hands he's opening under the gun. We've got a chance to flop some good stuff. And we've got some very good backdoors here, but I don't think a float is in order. Again, it's kind of difficult to float here against unknown player types. With we have a decent amount of equity, but we definitely have better hands rather to call. We are going to open here, blind v blind. King 3 of clubs against Kurt Russell. Accept no imitations. Let's see who we've got at the table. I think this is going to be fine in general. I'd be opening all my pairs from all positions. Some case for folding something like 2s through 6s under the gun, but I think fine. We're going to make so much money when we flop sets in these games, I would assume, given people tend to make quite a lot of calling mistakes at microstakes. Like they call recreational players, and some of the weaker regs are more inclined to pay us off in situations, so if we make our hand, there are more opportunities to win. Obviously, when we get 3-bet by this reg, once again, remember me. I certainly have. I think he seems to be one of the more aggressive players at the limit. We're just going to give up with the 4s. The wolf on the phone comes along, but I still don't think we should be calling here. If he was 100 big blinds deep, I would definitely be calling here trying to make a set, but I think when he's only got $5 left, or €5 left rather, we should just fold. Queen 8 off on the button is close. I think it's I don't hate folding it. 7 to off is not at all close. Easy folds. Ace 5 here is just going to be a fold against a recreational open. A hand that we can occasionally 3-bet as a bluff out of the blinds. Less so in the small blind. I would tend to 3-bet a suited ace there though. A suited ace 5. The games, obviously we've not off to the best of start here in the first 7 minutes, but the games do seem pretty good. They don't seem to be, there seems to be a pretty good, rather, recreational player to regular player ratio. There's so many people with like $5, $8, $9 showing up in the game, so that's promising for this series. Hopefully we're going to have a successful run at it. Looks like the wolf from the previous hand where we folded 4s did not win the pot. He's down to $2. Obviously we can't go to war with the 8-9. Jack 10 of clubs, I think it's fine to open. I don't really want a 3x. It's a little bit of a pain, but I definitely think a 2.5x from the cutoff is going to be best. I wouldn't be surprised if this aggressive guy 3-bets me again. I think if he does, we can see a flop with Jack 10 of clubs, even out of position. Kind of sucks when Dennis shoves. We would have to fold. But again, this Swedish guy not auto-rebuying. Potentially recreational. But doesn't give us any action on the Jack 10 of clubs. This is a really terrible hand here, the 4-5 offsuit, but we're getting an insane price of about 5 to 1. I say insane, it's a good price. The calling probably reasonable. This is a problem though. It's so hard to flop any decent equities here. I think for one big blind extra though, we can make a case for a call. We can definitely make a case for playing the pocket jacks. We're just going to stay with min opening the button. Unfortunately, no action on that one either. This hand seems good. We got the aces. Hopefully we can get in some interesting situations here. And this certainly seems pretty good. I think we're going to make this a little bit bigger, obviously, because we've got a caller here. We're out of position. I think 280 seems reasonable. Folding 6-9 off to a shove here, obviously. Yeah, I like the sizing. out of position and with the overcall here. Unfortunately, our squeeze forces them both out of the pot. But 2 playable hands coming right up. We got 8-9 of diamonds on the button. You could certainly make a case for 3-betting this. I think versus a guy who's not got auto top up on, I like taking a flop, hopefully on the button. Only problem being remember me in the big blind is a little bit squeeze happy, but I think for the most part we're going to see a call here. And that's obviously a very good flop. A little bit annoying. I haven't worked out if you can have custom bet sizes yet. I'm having to type in my 2.5x open, but definitely worth taking the time. On this flop, we have so much equity, it's kind of hard for us to make a mistake. I think I want to check raise. This flop, we do have an open-ended straight flush draw, which is obviously pretty good stuff. So let's make a check raise. Right, this sizing. Left-hand side, I think potentially, hopefully I have a time bank here. Good heavens. We're going to have to 4-bet. I don't know if I have a time bank. I think he can be squeezing a little bit wider, just trying to ISO this recreational player all in for his last 6 euros or whatever. So definitely happy to 4-bet, and obviously we'll be committed to calling off here with the queens. It's somewhat thin, but from a cutoff open with this player in the pot, I think it's fine. And he has the queen jack. The big blind has aces. I hit a 1-outer because some people just run that well, and apparently I'm one of them. In general, though, I think this is going to be fine. We shouldn't be playing for stacks too often from what I've seen at micro stakes with queens. For example, opening under the gun, you see a 3-bet from the small blind. I think taking a flop is going to be the best play rather than putting that 4th bet. If we open under the gun, we get a 3-bet from the big blind. Maybe I think definitely should just be calling rather than 4-betting. If we open queens in the cutoff and get 3-bet from the button, I definitely think we should be 4-betting and playing for stacks. If we open there, we opened in the cutoff, a big recreational player with $6 calls, and we get squeezed at the big blind, I definitely think it's correct then to try and re-isolate the recreational with the 2 queens. Obviously, when our opponent back raises all in, we're not overly happy, but with 5 euros already in the middle against a range of ace, king, queens plus. Obviously, we block the queens, but against that range with this other players' dead money in the pot as well, we're definitely getting the right price to call off against that range. And if you ever include a hand like pocket jacks, which is definitely a possibility, the way, given that the other guy was in the pot, the $6 guy, and that it's cut off versus blinds, I think stacking off there isn't going to be too much of a problem. Obviously, in this instance, our opponent has aces, and we hit the 1-out, but he's definitely going to show up with ace king. He's definitely going to occasionally show up with jacks at a stretch. But if there's ever a situation where he can show up with jacks there, it's going to be in that spot because of the guy to my left. Aces, we are going to make a re-raise to €2 versus the button open, but don't get any action. And our pocket fives, just taking them to showdown on the left-hand side and winning. One of the least interesting hands in No Limit Hold'em, Jack 4 off on the left-hand side. I don't know what this box is that keeps popping up over my opponents. That's a little bit irritating. Right-hand table, we're going to see a flop with 6-7 of spades. I think certainly a hand that has enough playability just to take a flop in position here. And we'd float this flop pretty wide. I don't think it's wide as 6-7, but I have pretty much every ace-x in my range. Any gut shots, king, jack, king, 10. I would call. Maybe even something like jack 9 of spades wouldn't be horrible if you want to go really wide, which I think isn't a complete mistake. People tend to open and c-bet that board very, very wide from the small blind, so our opponent's still going to have a pretty wide range. Opening the suited wheel ace here, I think, is a reasonable decision. If we see a 3-bet from the button, this is certainly a hand we can consider 4-bet bluffing. If it was someone like Remember Me, who we've already seen 3-bet a couple times, if it was him here and he 3-bet the button, we could definitely consider the 4-bet bluff. When we flop a flush draw, I am going to c-bet here. We don't need to bet particularly large. We're only trying to fold out hands like pocket fives, pocket sixes, which he may not have that, but it appears we don't get the fold. I think when we pick up a pair, obviously we're already beating hands like king 10. We're beating 9-10. We're beating 5-6 of hearts, 6-7 of hearts if he has those. we have good equity against, say, pocket eights that floats. I think checking to call the flop, the turn rather, is a totally reasonable play. So that's what I'm going to do. We make our flush. Kind of an interesting one here. I think what you'll find at 20 NL, sorry, is that our opponents are going to check back too much in position here with a hand like a queen. Even a jack 10, I think, is going to check behind. So I like leading the river for value, just to stop him being able to pot control anything. I've lost so much value in the past trying to check raise here. And there's two reasons I think that's a bad idea. The first of which is people's bet calling ranges at the river are very tight. So even if we check and he bets a hand like jack 10, he's not going to call the all-in. So it's kind of thin in that regard. Secondly, it's a paired board. Actually, there's kind of three reasons. Secondly, it's a paired board. So if we do get bet called at the river, a lot of the time it's going to be full houses that are going to bet call. Like I say, ranges for bet calling the river at this limit tend to be pretty tight. It is a paired board. We don't have the nuts. And a check raise maybe even a little bit too thin. If we think he's folding jack 10 and only calling with queen jack, jack 9, pocket 9s, pocket queens if he has them, and those sorts of hands, then check raising is obviously a disaster. And the third reason for leading the river rather than check raising is that they pot control too much. So I've seen people check behind jack 10. They're definitely going to check behind a queen. Some people are even going to check behind the straight there, like king 10. So definitely leading and trying to get value is going to be the best play in that hand. And it's one of those that's really hard to balance. I mean, it's getting a little bit complicated here, but I think we're just going to fold the king jack of diamonds to this 4-bet. We don't know enough about our opponent. I wouldn't imagine 4-bets are too light in this 20 euro game. So it's one of those where people talk about balance, like, okay, Spraggy, if you're going to lead the flush at the river, you have to have some bluffs. Now, we only really need to balance with bluffs if our opponents stop paying us off. The only reason we include bluffs in our range is so that our opponents keep calling us. At 20 NL, people are never going to stop calling you. People are always going to call there. They're never going to exploitably fold, realizing you don't bluff. They're just going to get frustrated and click call with their jack X and then see the flush at the river and, how bad do I run? We've all done it, and that's kind of how these games play. So we don't really need to worry about balancing our hand with bluffs. The only reason we would do that is if our opponents are going to stop calling us, but people aren't going to stop calling at 20 NL. So don't think we need to balance and lead the river for the reasons that I've said. Hopefully that makes sense. And I definitely think it's a good play. What we should do is, let's see what hand he called with. I would imagine it's going to be a jack a decent amount of the time. Maybe even a king 10. I'm struggling with the hand replayer here. Here we go. Previous hands. And he ends up calling the river with the jack 10. So imagine we did check the river, and I don't like I said, I don't think we'd go for a check raise. I think that's too thin. I think he's just going to bet fold the jack 10. So we bet like $4.20 at the river. So even if we check called, he's going to either check behind or bet a similar amount. So in leading ourselves, all we do is eliminate the chance that he checks that hand behind, which obviously would be a disaster if we let him check back his 3 of a kind. Anyway, hopefully that hand is of some merit. Left-hand side, we're going to ISO queen 10 of diamonds on the button to 5x once we see a limp and a limp. Both these ranges are going to be very wide, he says, as we get limp jammed on. But people tend to limp in these games fairly wide, I would imagine. Definitely ISOing something as playable as this in position and folding to the limp shove. Right-hand side, into 2 people, I still think I want to take a value bet. This opponent is going to have a very wide range because he's a recreational, and then he's going to be priced in the big blind really wide. So just denial of equity, even though a lot of the time against late cowboy, we're just going to be folding out a hand worse on our own. I think just denying him equity with whatever is fine and checking down at this point. Left-hand side, this is the guy who just limp shoved against us. I think I will 3-bet the ace-queen and not fold if he chooses to go all in. Right-hand side, a pretty easy fold with ace-jack. Incubus doesn't want to shove this time. We win the pot. Queen 7 is just going to be a fold. Ace 10 is certainly a hand that we can consider playing. I think if this guy opened the button, we would just call. Against a recreational, I think that's good. Obviously now we're going for the open. We do see a 3-bet from Olpus Opasoko. Pronunciations aside, I think our hand is probably strong enough to call. We do okay against some typical 3-bet bluffs. There's going to be some suited connectors in there. There's going to be some suited wheel aces. I think we have reasonable equity against that range. Obviously, there's some hands that dominate us. We see a check behind from this player. I think I want to start bluffing. You see very few people who here recall this river if they're regular with a hand like pocket 9s, pocket 10s. Obviously, we block 10s, but even pocket jacks and pocket queens. I think if we bet twice, certainly bluffing a heart river, this one kind of sucks. Just because it doesn't change the texture too much. And he does have some 4x that bluffs, something like 6-4 suited. So I think on this river, we're actually going to give up. I'd expect to see some 4x, some smaller pairs, and a king x. Occasional weak king x that chose to check. I would be very surprised if this wasn't 4x that chose to bluff, which I think is one of the, like, for example, this river is a jack. I think we bet again and we get a decent amount of folds as long as he doesn't have the 3 combos of pocket jacks. But this doesn't work out. We're just having to give up now, of course. Left-hand side, I decided not to 3-bet Remember Me under the gun. If he's a regular, there's not too much value in a 3-bet here with ace-king off. Calling in position is probably going to be your best bet. It's going to be hard if we get 4-bet, really to make money with a 5-bet, and inflating the pot here versus under the gun is just going to narrow his range. Without any diamonds on the flop, I'm just folding. If we had ace-king of spades and decided to flat, which we potentially just 3-bet that combo, but with a bit more of a backdoor draw, if this was the ace of diamonds, I would call flop. I think without a backdoor flush draw, folding is okay. We don't have that many flats there, and a lot of them are going to be pairs, so folding our ace highs should be fine. His range likely be quite tight anyway. Raising on the right hand side with Jack 10 suited. We're not going to see bet this flop, even though we have a pair and the hearts. We can't get 3 streets of value from a worse hand, and it helps us to have some flush draws in our range, more so against a reg, less so against a recreational, someone like L. Kelly. I think calling's going to be the best play. We're never going to get him to fold an ace, so there's no point raising. If he doesn't have an ace, obviously we have the best hand. Right-hand side, this guy has so little that I think 3-betting him is kind of a waste of the hand. I'm just going to call in position and hope someone tries to squeeze for this amount of money. But that doesn't happen. Whatever happens now is irrelevant. He has $3 and we have the aces, so we'll just put him all in. Right-hand side, we see a 20-set bet. We're just going to call. And we're going to win here, hopefully. Indeed. And again, for 20 cents, I don't see any reason why we would ever fold. And he has the pocket 2s. So we get a little bit of a bluff out there on the pot size bet. I think raising the river would be too thin, despite the small bet. So we just take the showdown. And yeah, sorry, back to the hand on the left-hand side. When your opponent only has like $2.50, I think 3-betting the aces is kind of a waste. I mean, whatever happens with that $2 is going to be fine. You're really trying to look to get value from your other opponents, and I think the best way to do that is probably with a call. It's also going to encourage them, if they have anything reasonable, they're going to 3-bet it anyway, just to try and isolate the guy with €3. Over here, I think we can call again, blind v blind. We get 3-bet. Obviously, this is slightly worse than ace-10. We can't make straights. We can make flushes with the ace-8 suited, though. I think for $1, or €1 rather, calling's going to be the best play. This flop, check folding is going to be the best play by quite some margin. Four-handed here, I don't mind an open because we're effectively in the cutoff. So that's what I'm going to do. This is the guy who shoved previously. It makes it somewhat less attractive, but once he's already got some money in the pot, I think there's a good chance he just sees flops. Right-hand side, we certainly could 3-bet, but we got a cowboy with $11 in the big blind. I think there's more value in flattening the button and letting him potentially get into the pot. And we go 4-way and flop very poorly indeed. It'll just be a fold here without any backdoors, no pairs, not the board we do well on. Don't think we want to open the 6-5 off against Remember Me. We already know that he's one of the more aggressive players in the pool. Not a hand that's going to play well. We will be opening the ace-9 suited here. I apologize for my screen name, Absolute Chimp. Hopefully not too many of you think that I've played like an absolute chimp today. Trying to keep it reasonable. Definitely folding if Laguna Blade X wants to gamble for this €8, but happy to see a flop if he or she doesn't. Ace-8 off. Just going to fold. Very, very easy dominated hand, even for the price here. I think just folding. So we could go a number of ways with this. I'm going to assume this guy is somewhat reggy. That might not be a correct assumption. We really know nothing about him. A min raise under the gun is a little bit curious. We do have Incubus in the small blind, who has shown that he can just shove in these spots. He shoved €8 before. We also have Remember Me in the big blind, who can potentially squeeze, and I think just calling is probably going to be the best play in position. Again, we flop very, very poorly for our hand and no backdoors. I just think we're going to fold this combo again. You have just much better hands to defend. Jack-9 of diamonds under the guns, probably just a fold. If you have two well-known recreational players in the blinds, you can open, especially if you have nittier regulars to your left. But I think in general, it should just be a fold from the first position. Twos on the left, we're going to go with a raise. And a fold to the 3-bet. A hand like twos is very, very difficult to play unless we flop a set. In this instance, without any initiative, I would advocate very strongly against defending hands like twos to 3-bets, even in position, just because you're not going to flop a set often enough. And with the high rake at micro stakes and the fact that it's really tricky for us to play those, like 2s through 6s have very, very poor playability. Unless we hit a 2, we can't really make money. We chose to 3-bet bluff with the ace-2 of diamonds versus a min open on the button. Unfortunately, this man is indeed too greedy. He calls behind, and we flop very, very poorly once again. Queen-9 suited, likewise, just going to be a fold. And here, I think our best bet is just to check fold against this guy once he cold calls. We see a limp from Anusi. We definitely want to be isolating these limps pretty wide, especially in position. King 10 off, more than strong enough to go for the ISO against the limp. Hopefully we don't see a squeeze from Sharkstar. Hopefully we see a call here and we can take a flop in position. Again, it's a somewhat connected board. I think I would want a diamond to c-bet. Based on the fact that he limped, we're going to assume he's fairly passive. So there are some instances where we can get to showdown and king high be the best hand. So I think we are going to check behind here on the flop and just give this one up on the turn. I could see arguments for a c-bet if we had the king of diamonds and a few more opportunities to double barrel. For 40 cents, we've got a gut shot and probably 2 live cards against something like, I don't know, Jack-9. So we're probably okay to call. Very, very, very occasionally have the best hand. But just folding the river. On the right-hand side, we're going to check back with our pair. Again, we can't go for multiple streets of value. We could certainly bet it. Certainly not max. We could certainly bet here for a little bit of protection, which actually I think we're going to do. He's limped in the small blind. He's got 2 random cards. And just protecting our 2 against that's probably going to be fine. So this video is going to be the first part of a 4-part series playing these Zoom games, or sorry, Speed Hold'em games here on Coral Poker. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this first episode. If you have any questions about any of the hands we played, or you have any queries about anything that's happened in the video, do let me know in the comments. I'll try and be around to answer those either on Poker VIP or on the YouTube channel. We're looking at 4 30-minute videos, and we are just approaching the first 30 minutes. So we will be sitting out for our next big blind and see if we can get some final interesting hands going on here. What do I want? Sit out next big blind on 2 tables. There we go. Taking it down with the King Jack. 5-8 of diamonds is a little bit of a marginal open on the button. Probably just a fold. As is 5-9 of hearts here. I mean, this guy's kind of passive. I really don't mind a limp here. It's kind of a little bit inconsequential, but Against a recreational player, I don't think it can hurt. We have a bunch of outs and some fold equity. I'm just going to pot the turn. We can get him off some better hands. Ace 3, for example, that calls flop. Pocket 4s or 5s if he has them. We have, obviously, a straight flush. A straight and a flush draw. And he does fold turn. Left-hand side, with the ace-8 of hearts, I think we just fold versus the under-the-gun open. We are done on the right, but I think maybe another hand on the left. Going to be close. I think we will open if it gets folded to us, but probably one of the worst hands that I do open versus someone who's probably going to defend the big blind quite wide. When David opens, it's showers for us, as is Queen 6 off. But pocket 8s, most likely going to be our final hand. Let's see how this one plays out. We'll go for a raise against Wonga. And we don't flop particularly well. I think a check fold is probably best. Definitely versus a pot size bet on this board. Can't really continue here. We get another one. I am sitting out next big blind, right? Just checking. Apparently I'm just going to get dealt the most number of free hands anyone's ever seen. Unfortunately, they're not all that playable. We're still going. No big blinds for me. 9-3 off, though. Okay. We finally hit the big blind and have been sat out. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Like I say, if you have any comments or queries about anything that happened or you want to discuss any of the hands, feel free to do so. Hopefully you enjoyed that first episode. There are 3 more episodes coming up for you on Coral Poker, so stay tuned and hopefully see you next time. Thanks again.